What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Judge Chat Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. Today I am joined by...
Luca, what's good?
Yay! Alright, so today's going to be a little bit more of a casual episode.
I was on the last episode.
Correct. But we're missing the other two, so it's just us. Intimate. Sensual.
Ooh. I don't like that.
Anyways, all right. So let's just go ahead and we're both we're starting our podcast off with a few drinks, a few cold ones. But that's fine. Drink responsibly, everybody. Never drink and drive. And anyway, let's talk about a children's trading card game.
Hell yeah.
Alright, so big news for this week, actually I believe it's next week, but it doesn't matter, is the 2023 Mega Tins. I don't remember the official name, I think it's just the quarter century tins? 25th anniversary
25th
tins.
anniversary, like Dueling Heroes or something.
Yep, so the tins are actually pretty good this year, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah. They're fine.
We're getting a lot of good cards. I mean, what all is it? We're getting the Dynamorphia cards are all getting reprinted, which is good because it's a really strong control strategy. It's just annoying that we're gonna run into Dynamorphia a lot more at locals. What else? I don't know
what you mean by annoying. I've never lost to that deck, and I've played it a lot.
I mean, it's Ferret Flames? I've lost to that card alone 6 times.
Oh, yeah,
just Ferret Flames.
We're
getting a lot of the Difo and cards. We're getting Illusion of Chaos and all the Therions reprinted. They weren't expensive. They're $30, $20, I think. So they weren't terrible for core set secrets, but the reprints are nice, you know.
Yeah. I'm currently, if you want to continue to ad-lib, I'm currently playing up the
we're getting
card list right now.
Yeah, we're getting a reprint of DDD King Machinex, so good for the Unchained players.
Yes.
Getting the Zombie Vampire, the Dark Charmer, Gloomy. I don't remember if that's getting a rarity upgrade though. I think it might be.
So Gloomy is getting an ultra rare upgrade.
Nice. It was originally secret rare, I believe, so that's nice. I haven't... that card was, poised to be one of the, game-breaking Link 2s, and, sure, it's good, but there's been just as many decks I've played without it as with it, so...
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was necessarily game-breaking, but, it's always just been a very strong card. Mm-hmm. Even in formats where it wasn't, where dark decks weren't the best decks, it was always still just very strong in decks, simply because most 9 times out of 10 your deck had access to a dark monster, and then conversely 9 times out of 10 your opponent's deck was usually had a dark monster you could just yoink and then upgrade into a unicorn or something.
Yeah, that's very true. I think half the reason it's not that strong is Kashtira, the only dark you can steal is a Rise Heart or I think Rise Heart. I think those are the only darks in the deck. So.
No, so Rise Heart is a fire, so it is actually
just a Rise Heart. It's just Rise Heart, yeah. Or a Rise Heart, yeah. So that doesn't help. Purely, you could take the big towers, Ep Noir or Ex Noir. Doesn't really make much sense to. There's nothing you can take from Unchained. There's just not a lot of decks in the meta right now. I think the best deck it's used against is Dragon Link, but Dragon Link is already playing once. I don't know. We're also getting Flundries and the Advent of Adventure. That's a great reprint for Flu if they ever get more support, which they will not because everyone fucking hates that deck.
Nobody likes playing against that deck anymore.
See, okay,
I never liked playing against that deck.
I did play it a little bit after the barrier statue got banned, and the deck is fine. It's just you're so on your toes. It's almost worse than Heroes, where you have to be maintaining the board state all the time.
Flounder has this weird thing where it's Floundery's players will either open the most broken 6-card hand you could think of, or they'll open or their hand will lose to a single Ash Blossom and they just die.
Correct.
And there's no in between.
So I'm not. I might be incorrect on this, but I think Clear New World is getting a rarity upgrade. And if you've never read Clear New World, it's actually
upgraded from a common to a rare.
Yeah, but still, like, Clear New World is like one of those cards. It's like if it was released back in like 2016, it would be like the most busted card ever. But it's
Clear New World's actually quite strong.
Yeah. Sales ban's getting reprinted. Not that anyone cares. It was only used in degenerate stuff like Mystic Mine and Rongo Miniad.
And even wrong.
In Master Duel.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, Master.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sales ban was interesting because like I remember like a lot of people like telling me about sales ban and how it's gonna like break the game, and then like I don't think I've ever seen a single list like top with sales ban in it.
No, people were using it in like people were using it, I think, branded, because they're like, oh, if we just sales ban Call Ash, then we don't have to worry about branded fusion getting ashed. And then they just realized that was bad.
Yeah, they realized that cross-out designator was just better.
Yeah. I already mentioned, Vsauce is getting a reprint, so that's good. Vsauce won't be expensive for the Vanadium players. All the Scareclaw cards, literally every single one of them is getting reprinted, so that deck will be dirt cheap. All the adventure cards as well. I think the only one...
All the cash tier cards are getting reprinted, so...
all the cash tier cards. Yeah. Some of the cards that I like the most getting reprinted are some of the zombie support. So Red Eye Zombie, Dragon Lord, Immortal Dragon, Skeletal Dragon, Felgrand. They weren't like super expensive cards, but the zombie like archetype, super type, whatever you want to call it, is like really interesting. Like if you're in the zombie Discord, those motherfuckers are brewing up some of the wackiest shit ever, and it's hilarious.
I can imagine.
Like what was
all
it?
the runic cards are getting like... Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. So, like, one of the things for the zombie players is, if you remember the Ghost Fusion cards from the one of the most recent side sets.
That's like the one that like it like lets you banish cards or.
Yep, it lets you banish a zombie from your deck, which is crazy.
Cool.
However, like, you have to get to the zombie fusion and all that stuff. So what they figured out is if you normal summon Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio, that gets you to zombie fusion. So zombies somehow went from, oh, your best normal summon is Unizombie, to, oh, your best normal summon is Punk Zeomin, to, oh, your best normal summon is fucking Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio. I don't know. The zombie players are like coping, but in a really cool way. They're coping.
Yeah, zombies for me always just have this like weird thing where like the zombie cards like zombie as a deck just always felt like the third best way you could ever like play a deck in a format. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Punk Zombie deck, for example, was just like you can play like Punk Zombies, but that's probably just worse than playing like Punk Therion or just like Punk Adventurer. And that was just always like kind of like really frustrating.
Also, the zombie like pile decks are just really hard to pilot. That's what I've noticed from like, trying to play them. Is you have to really be aware of all your resources, and that's just not something a lot of people can do. So they go really underexplored.
I think the problem with like the zombie deck is that like because like the zombie deck like because of the fact that like there does reach a point where you do eventually just kind of like xenolocked into zombies.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like always be kind of like playing in a way where you're not. At least I'm pretty sure there's usually a point where you get xenolocked to zombies. It's like you always have to play with that like in mind.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to Dragon Link.
Structure your turn around that. Whereas like the other combo decks, you can kind of just like do stuff, and that's just like, and that opens you up to a lot more. Like that gives you like a much higher like ceiling overall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's see what else. We got Pep, we got Psychic and Punisher, and Beyond the Pendulum getting reprinted. Both great, like generic extra cards. What else? Some of the branded cards are getting reprinted.
The Therion's getting reprinted.
Yep, Therion's getting reprinted. Actually very good reprints. Some of the new hero support is getting reprinted. Spirit of Neos, Favorite Contact. Those cards are getting reprinted, as well as Exosister Martha, and I believe all the Exosisters. What else?
Those reprints are really
Garura, great reprint right there.
The Runics.
Yep, all the Bystials.
The Runics are all getting reprinted.
Yep, all the Runics, all the Bystials, Blazing Cartesia, all the Ninja cards, all the new Ninja cards, I should say.
The Draco Slayers are all getting like Prismatic Secret Rares. That's really good.
Yep. I don't know if any of the new Manchuria cards. Yeah.
They are, yeah. They're all getting like upgrades. So like Mole Cricket and Camilla are getting supers, and then Blessing's getting an ultra.
Very nice. All the Labyrinth cards, except for I think it's exactly Big Welcome, which that card I think shot up to like $12, $15, something like that. So
it's because it's the only one. It's because it came out in it's the same thing as like a Rise Heart, where like they both came out in Photon Hypernova. So so neither of them were like in this wave of.
What else?
Like
we got
kind of like wave of tens essentially.
Yeah, we got the World Z Dragons, Atlantis. We got Muckracker.
We got a few like old reprints, but that's just because they got like soft errated to like for other.
There's like a bunch of like really weird cards that got reprinted. It's way at the bottom.
I had like in the list at one point. Yeah, I had like the list of like what the changes were. I don't remember where it is.
If I'm not mistaken, it is Shark Drake Vice. So number C32 is Shark Drake Vice, Crawler Receptor, and I believe everything else is new cards. Camelot, Realm of the Noble Knights and Noble Arms, Time Thief, Power Reverse, and Spiral. So
the new cards we can talk about in a sec. But for like the cards with like the changes, so there's also the DDD King Leonidas.
Okay.
There's Amor Factor.
Amor Factor Pain.
And then there's like a dual avatar card. And there's like there's Noble Knight Custom, and then there's like I think it's Dragoonity Senatus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So those are. I mean, if they're like text erratas, they're text erratas. Like, it's good that we're getting them at least. But
like I know, like for example, like I think, they're all like pretty good cards, I guess. They're fine.
So I guess we can talk about the new cards. So there's three of them. There's three total, and they support. They support three archetypes. Yeah, that are just like not that cool. Go ahead. You can talk about them.
So there's the Noble Knight card, which is Camelot. I'm gonna talk about the Spiral one last because I could literally like give you a whole thesis statement because I've played Spiral basically since like 2017.
All right, let's go for it. So Camelot.
We're gonna start with Camelot.
So I can read the effect if you want.
Yeah.
Alright, so once per turn, if a Noble Knight card you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy one equipped card you control instead. From what I understand, that is insane. During your main phase, you can banish this card until your next standby phase, and if you do place one Noble Knights of the Round Table from your deck, hand, or graveyard in your face-up field zone, then you can special summon one Artorgus monster, or add one Noble Arms card from your deck to your hand. No, hold on. Okay. You can then special summon Artorgus monster or add to your hand one Noble Arms card from your deck or graveyard. And then that effect is a hard once per turn.
Yeah, so for context, for those that don't know what Noble Knights of the Round Table does,
aka 99%
I pulled
of the population.
So during your end, it's a field spell. During your end phase, you can activate each of these effects up to once per turn, depending on the total number of Noble Knight cards with different names in your graveyard and/or you control. So 3+, send one Noble Knight monster. Send one Noble Knight card from your deck to the graveyard. 6 or more, you special summon one. You can special summon a Noble Knight from your hand, then you can equip it with a Noble Arms equip spell from your hand. 9 or more, target a Noble Knight monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand, and then 12, draw a card.
Okay, that's some effects.
So the first thing you'll notice is that the new Noble Arm, the Noble Knights field, the old Noble Knights field spell just isn't very good. And so a lot of the problem with this field spell is just the fact that like it's a very underwhelming field spell that gets you another underwhelming field spell. But because of the way the card is like structured, it's like the Noble Arm, like the ability to flicker it essentially to grab a Noble Arms equip spell is very good, but it requires you to play a bad card in the first place, essentially. Which just isn't like really worth it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting card. it's definitely an interesting card for the Noble Knights. I finally played against a Noble Knights deck, like not yesterday, but the day before, and like I lost to it. But it's also just like I was talking to the guy afterward, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, like it dies to one hand trap. Droll just kills this deck. Shifter kills this deck." And
so were you playing against Noble Knights or were you playing against Infernoble Knights? Because there's a difference.
Oh, Infernobles, yeah.
So for context, this card is like terrible in it.
Makes sense.
because the first effect just like doesn't matter. Like the protection effect doesn't really matter. And then the other effect, again, you already don't want to play Round Table in normal Noble Knights. You definitely don't want to play in Infernoble Knights. And like the only like Noble Arms equipped spell for Infernoble sets, like at least in normal Noble Knights, the ability to grab like a Noble Arms card is actually a lot more flexible because you can get I think it's Excalibur, which is like the rank up magic. It lets them turn their rank 4 into a rank 5, and the rank 5 is like pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas for Infernobles, the only Noble Arms card worth grabbing is like Durandal, but your deck is literally designed to just be able to have like a million ways to get Durandal. So like at that point, it's just you're adding essentially 2 garnets to get a card that you can already like get anyway. So like it's just not really worth it.
Yeah.
Noble Knights was sort of designed to be this really cool, kind of like Voltron style deck, where it's like you put out like their boss monster, which is the Xyz or Torragus. You give them like a bunch of equip spells, and like all the equip spells just have like a lot of really good utility effects. Like one can let you pop back row, one can give your guy protection from targeting effects, one protects him from like being destroyed by card effects and stuff. They're really cool. Until people realize that you can just like summon you just summon the guy and then activate Kaiser Coliseum, and your opponent just can't really beat that.
Yeah. So, anyways, I guess it's like maybe it's an interesting card, maybe lore wise, and maybe it'll do stuff later on when they get more support. But right now, it's not that good. So let's move on. So the Time Thief Power Reverse is the trap card. So it's a continuous trap. It says you can special summon this card as a normal monster, Psychic, Dark level 4, 19 attack, 25 defense. Very big stats for a level 4 monster. Anyway, it's also still treated as a trap. You can then special summon 1 Machine Time Thief monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. If you control an XYZ monster that is both a spell and a trap card as material, you can banish this card from your graveyard, banish 1 card on your field, or on the field, I should say, and then you can only use each effect of Time Thief Power Reverse once per turn. So, I don't know anything about Time Thieves, right? But I can see some inherent problems with this card.
First of all, it's a trap.
Yeah, first of all, it's a trap, and it does not have like it doesn't have like the Shade Brigandine or the Traptrix Holatea.
Yeah, like if you could activate it like the turn you set it.
This would be great. If this was just like discard a Time Thief card to activate it the turn this was set, this thing it would be pretty good, because this just gets you, I believe it's Time Thief Winder, which is like the rescue rabbit for the archetype. So that would be
it's a regulator.
Regular there, right? So that would be like good in itself. But the other problem I see is like you can't if it had like a quick Xyz type of effect, like Pearly Leap, where you activate this, you summon a guy, and then you immediately Xyz, then that would also make this playable, because that lets you make.
I will say it does also get you the Bezel Ship, which is basically just like it gets you which is basically just like a DD Crow effect. Like it lets you you contribute the Bezel Ship as like a quick effect to attach a card from your opponent's graveyard to a Time Thief Xyz monster.
Yeah, so
that isn't bad.
That's not bad. So the graveyard effect, however, does seem pretty good, because this gives Time Thieves a way to out floodgates and maybe like destruction immune monsters without without having to use resources in hand. This is essentially the Vashetta of the archetype now, which inherently does seem good, but again, it's a trap card. There's not a lot of easy ways to get this in the grave. So if it had any of those like stipulations,
unless there's like a way in theme to like put it into a graveyard, I guess. But other than that, I don't really know.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know that much about Time Thieves, but from the way that I understand the deck and from just how I'm reading the card, it seems like if it just had one of those like little things, like the quick XEs, the Traptrix Holte, you know, pitch a Time Thief to activate this the turn it's set, whatever, that might be good. But otherwise, I don't see it being very good. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the card that you seem to be very excited about, Spiral Double Agent. I'm just going to let you go loose. You can just go ahead and rant about this for like 10 minutes.
I don't know if excited is the word. I feel feelings. So, Spiral Double Agent. For context, when this card got like teased, I got like super excited because this is like the first Spiral card, like direct Spiral card that we've gotten in like 5 years, 6 years.
Could you imagine if it was like a Spy Pal or Spy Gal thing again?
Don't want to talk about it. I probably would have died. So it's called Spiral Double Agent. It's a light level 4 fiend effect monster, 1400 attack, 600 defense. Cool. If you have a Spiral card on your field or in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field and defense position. Cannot be tributed nor used as material for a fusion, synchro, XEs, or link summon if it's summoned that way. Then both players reveal the top card of their deck. You can only use this effect with Spiral Double Agent once per turn. All Spiral monsters on the field gain 500 attack. Also, Spiral Super Agent on the field can attack directly. So like, this is kind of weird. So I feel like if this card had came out like pre-Double Helix, this card would be like really cool, because for those of you who have never who never played Spiral like pre-Double Helix, the deck kind of played more so as this like, sort of, like it was built around Super Agent and Sleeper, where usually like your end field would kind of consist of just having like a Sleeper with like a Last Resort and then like Super Agent with the Wire set. That's usually like the ideal kind of like end board, and then like you would have like hand traps and stuff to like back that. And you just had this really cool like resource engine with like Resort, just like reshuffling your stuff, and then you had like ways to just randomly OTK your opponents with Super Agent through like a big board, because Drone can buff up your agent, and then Last Resort lets it attack directly. So Double Agent kind of fits that style. For the new Spiral decks, it's with like Double Helix and everything, where now it's just kind of like a flashy Link combo deck. It's like fine.
Yeah. I feel like
it has the benefit of it. It has like the benefit of just the fact that part of the problem that Spiral had is that like without really like your only consistent way of like knowing what was on top of your opponent's deck when you went first was Drone. So the fact that like this basically makes it where like if you have Super Agent with like you have this Super Agent and then like any Spiral monster now, you can like basically guarantee get to Helix. The problem really is just the fact that like with Master Plan banned, there's no real payoff to summoning Helix anymore.
Right. So just like off the top of my head, I feel like if you could summon this to your field as well, then that might be like decent, because that gives you like extra material to make Double Helix or like any other like generic Link or XEs plays. But I might just be capping. I might just not know anything about Spirals.
Yeah, like if you could if it was like if you have a Spiral card on your field, you can special summon it, then reveal the top card of both players' decks. It's gonna be a lot better.
Yeah.
Like if you could if it was instead of summoning to your opponent's field, and having the whole can't be tributed, all that stuff, and then reveal both players' decks, and instead it just summoned itself to your field, then both players reveal the top of their deck, and you just omit like all that middle stuff, it'd be like really cool as like just a generic extender. But it doesn't do that. The main issue that Spiral just has really is the fact that like without Master Plan, you don't have a consistent way of getting your Spiral mission cards into circulation.
Mm-hmm.
And the mission cards are like what makes that deck so much more powerful. Like Master Plan was as good as it was because it essentially just let you like go +3 the second it like hit the field.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, in Master Duel, I believe Spiral maybe not is at full power, but I believe they have Master Plan.
It's like basically a full power, I think, in Master Duel. I forget exactly what the difference is.
So like, given that information, I know like I do not use Master Duel as like to like validate a reason that a card should come back anymore, right? Like, but like given that information, and as somebody who played Spiral, do you think Master Plan like could come back? Like maybe
No.
not whether it should, but like no,
Okay.
it's just too powerful.
Yeah, it's way too. We were talking about this. Like, I think the problem with Master Plan creates like this really weird like dichotomy like for Spyro, where like if you unban Master Plan into like an underpowered format, then Spyro isn't, even if Spyro's not necessarily like the best deck, it's at least like a top 5 instantly, just because of like how powerful it is, and especially because like we don't have Maxi to like rein it in,
Yeah.
compared to like Master Duel or even OCG, so that's like a big thing going against it. But even in and then like it's one of those things where it's like the more powerful a format is, the weaker Spyro is, and this was kind of a debate I was having with Hatch, where it was like part of the problem with Spyro is the fact that when you have other really powerful combo decks, like those decks are usually just like Spyro can usually make like a better board than those decks, but and they have like better going second options just because like the nature of the Spyro monsters. But those decks can usually just like are usually just more consistent.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like they're more consistent, and their board is usually just like, even if it's not as good as the Spyro boards, they're still just like good enough, you know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So,
and that just makes Spyro in turn a lot worse. So
yeah. So anyway, so that's the not the 2020, the 25th anniversary Megaton. So one thing that I always like to do, a little segment that I always like to do whenever we get a big reprint set like this or anything, is we lost money on blank, or what did we lose money on? So I'll go first, and I'll admit it. So I knew about some of the things that were going to happen, like the Labyrinth cards getting reprinted. I was trying to move my Labyrinth core, and I just couldn't move my Labyrinth core, so I lost money on that. I lost money on most of my Bystials, like all the Cashier stuff I had. I didn't have the full core. I pulled like unicorns and a Theosis and like a Fenrir and like stuff like this, and I got rid of like ulti Fenrirs when I pulled them from tournament packs, but like I just kept holding on to my ultras, and now they're like $15 and they're probably gonna get hit on the list, so feels bad, man. Anything else? The adventure stuff. I bought the adventure stuff back when like water enchantresses were like 20 a piece. They're gonna be like $3 a piece now.
My
Scareclaw stuff is going down. Yeah, so I've lost a bunch of money in this team, but I don't care that much.
I actually have a funny little like side tangent story about the adventure stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when the adventure cards first came out, I picked up like a core just because I was like, yeah, this stuff is like relatively like at the price they were, it was like fine. Like I think I wound up picking a core for like around $250.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I was like with like 3 enchanters, 3 right, the event, all that stuff. But so I was gonna play in a case tournament.
Yep. And
originally I was just gonna play. This was back in like 2021 or 2022, early 2022. And I was originally just gonna play Pure Sky Striker. But then like the night before, my rights and my enchantress came in the mail, and I had been like labbing this Adventure Sky Striker deck with some friends. And I was like, cool. If I can just pick up, like, cool, but I don't have the rest of the stuff. But like the stuff I was missing was like the cheap stuff. It was like literally Faithful Adventure, Griffin, and the Dracoback. Mm-hmm. So I went to my locals like that night to see if I could find it. I was able to pick up the Dracoback and the Adventure, but I couldn't find. But they didn't have Donnell because it was not Donnell, Dracoback, because it was like a 10-cent bulk card, like you know. So instead, I bought a few packs of Grand Creators to see if I could pull one. Okay. Didn't pull one. Instead, I pulled Donnell, the Noble Arms of Light, which, if you've never read this card, I told you it's not good. I'll read it to you real quick. It's fun.
Sure. Yeah, let's listen to this.
Equip only to a monster you control. Yeah, you can only control one Donnell, the Noble Arms of Light. The equipped monster gains 500 attack for each monster you name that mentions a starts that target. You can only use active Donnell once per turn.
Sorry,
so it's not good. It literally just makes your adventure tokens. Which part did I cut out?
I think you got to like gains 500, and then you start cutting out. So.
Okay, so it gains 500 attack for each monster you control. Their name that mentions adventurer token. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target an adventurer token you control. That part's the same as straight effect.
Yeah.
So it's not a very good card. However, for the deck I was playing, it was just a equipped spell that mentioned adventure token in its text, so you could search it with Faithful. That's all I did. I did actually, however, win against Flaunderies because it was a Donnell and not a Draco back. Because I was able to just like summon the token, summon a Griffin, summon an Enchantress, normal summon a Ray, and then I equipped the token with the Donnell, and that was 8,000 exact because it gained 1,000 because I controlled the Griffin and the Enchantress.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so
funny. He was very salty.
Yeah. So like that reminds me of So one of my favorite formats that I've played in a long time was the branded Sword Soul format. It was right before the adventure cards released. There was a remote duel YCS. I actually got to day 2 and I bubbled day 2. I got to like 78th place out of like 1,000, like 1,200 people, which is pretty good. The only problem with that format was Protoss.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also,
this was before the Protoss ban, huh?
It was before the Protoss ban, yeah. So I don't know why I misremembered this. I thought the way it happened was it was branded Sword Soul, Protoss got banned, and then there was like a 2-week period before the adventure cards released. I had it reversed. There was branded Sword Soul, the adventure cards got released, then Protoss got banned, and because of that, that's why Adventure Prank Kids became the best deck, because they no longer had to deal with Protoss.
Well, no, branded wasn't a deck yet, right? I'm not crazy.
No, I believe it was like branded Sword Soul was like always a format. Like as long as Sword Soul was out.
Well, no, but like Sword Soul. Well, no, so Sword Soul came out in Bode, but like branded didn't come into deck until like. Verte got banned. It was like a while.
Yeah, Verte was
like
legal
the timeline
because
was
I played. Verte was legal because I played a Cybers Eldritch deck, which was super cool. It was.
Oh, that deck's cool.
Yeah, that deck was super fun. That was the deck I took to the YCS, and I almost won it. The only reason I lost is it was the very last round of Swiss, and I lost to Sky Strikers because I played the long game, and I assumed he had more cards in hand than he did. Yeah, no. What it was is I activated Sign Up Mining, and it was a choice between pitching an Eldritch Trap, or pitching a Called by the Grave. And for references, like we were already pretty deep into the game, so like I was pretty sure I didn't have any more Eldritch Traps in deck, or like none that actually mattered. So I pitched the Called by the Grave. And I just shouldn't have done that. So
yeah,
I played conservative, and I didn't know a lot about the Sky Striker like deck, like how it functioned. Because I started playing in 2021 for reference. So I did not understand Sky Strikers the way that a lot of like veteran players understand it. So I was like, I don't think Called by the Grave matters here because I don't think I'm going to get hand trapped.
It matters a lot.
Yeah,
especially in like that format, Called by the Grave mattered a lot because not only does it hit Ray, but also hits DP, and DP like into the.
I was
strong.
That was the thing, is they were both DPE decks. It was like who's going to resolve their DPE first, who's going to get the whatever. But anyway, that was a very fun format.
Yeah.
Also, another format that I played in was that I hated was it was the format of YCS Minneapolis, which like the best deck in the room by far was like a Runic Sprite build where they were looping Lava Golem with Wind Up Kitten. And I brought Adventure Scareclaw to a case tournament.
God.
And for reference, right, we had people from like Switzerland who topped the YCS over there. We had players like Brian Kalina and people from like, at the time, I think it was...
was this just one? Was it like the weekend of the YCS?
It was the weekend of the YCS, yeah. There was a case tournament the day before the YCS. And like, we had all those players. The top 4 players, right, were myself, and 3 different Sprite Runic decks.
Nice.
And so for reference, right, Adventure Scareclaw has no game plan against Sprite Runic, because if you make any number of monsters that deal with Sprite Smashers, you lose to Lava Golem. If you don't lose to Lava Golem by just making your Tri-Heart and passing, you lose to Sprite Smashers.
Yeah.
So it was a very unfortunate run when I ran into them in the top 4, but I still got my I think we decided to split the prizing, so I still got 3 boxes of Darkwing Blast at the time, so that was cool.
Nice.
I think I pulled 2 Fenrir from those boxes, so it was worth at the time. Anyway, so that's what we lost money on. So I guess speaking of YCSs and everything,
I should have clarified. I didn't actually lose any money on the Megatons because I sold all my cards.
Yeah, I was not. I just wasn't able to move anything. But anyway.
I will say the funniest part for me was that case tournament. Was for Battle of Chaos, and I wound up getting 3, and we wound up splitting 2. I got 3 boxes of Battle of Chaos. And for the longest time, I just had a small, just stack of darks, the Darkling 2. And at one point it hit $5, and I just sold them all. I made such a profit on that one card.
Very nice, very nice. So yeah, speaking of case tournaments and YCSs, there's a 3v3 YCS. Was it this past weekend or?
It just wrapped up a few hours ago.
Okay, all right. So you have the tournament report up, I believe. So why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
So the finals was the YCS was ultimately won by Team Better Have It, which consists of Ruben, Penaronda, sorry if I butchered that, Kamal Crooks, and Pakawat, aka Pac TCG. And then so the finals was Dragonlink, Pearly, and Unchained versus Pearly, Vanquish Soul, and Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Unchained kind of was the breakout star of this tournament. There was 8 Unchained decks in the top 16.
Yeah, let me see if I can't find...
A lot of those numbers, I will say, a lot of those numbers were kind of because I looked at who was actually playing it, and they were all just North American players, who are all just kind of within that same kind of sphere of knowing each other. So I think that definitely inflated the numbers a little bit. But yeah, no, Unchained's been doing pretty well for itself the last few weeks. Since,
we were talking about this just a bit before, and I've been playing Unchained, as my take to tournaments deck, and the way that I position Unchained, right, everyone knows this. It's a deck that doesn't really lose to Droll, it doesn't really lose to Shifter, and it just operates on a different axis than every other deck in the format. And because of that, it's very similar to how Evil Swarms performed in the Dragon Ruler spellbook meta format, where it's it just did something different and it countered both decks, but it was kind of below the power level of the other 2 decks, but it just countered them perfectly. It's a good deck, it's a strong deck, but it's just every time I look at the Pearly boards and the Kashtira boards and the Dragon Link boards, I'm Unchained doesn't really feel like it does that much against them, but it does.
Yeah, it shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah.
The fact that also the fact that the deck can also just randomly dodge targeting effects because of the Red Dog is also pretty useful.
No, the Red Dog is insane.
Red Dog being able to basically act kind of a call by the grave in that situation can definitely help with pushing into boards a lot, I feel like.
I'm looking at the top 8 list, and there is a lot of Unchained. I think, is there only one in the top 8, which is, top 8 is still a lot. That's it's 6 decks. It's still 24 players. I think I'm only seeing 1 Vanquish Soul, which I feel like I'd put Vanquish Soul above Unchained personally.
So the Vanquish Soul deck wound up getting into the finals. His deck was really cool. He was playing because I watched one of his, because I watched the finals feature match. He was playing the Super Heavy Samurai package. Because you can use them to make King Dempsey.
Yep.
To then search the, what's his name? The Ryzen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was trying to.
He got Unfortunately, he got impermed and just proceeded to lose the game after that. But
So I was trying to pill. So I saw that same package where it's like either like 3 bike and a Wakushi, or 3 Wakushi and a bike, and then the other 2 like garnets for the super heavy deck engine. I saw somebody playing it for a rescue ace deck.
Yeah.
And I was trying to pill Hatch on it because Hatch has been one-tricking Vanquish Soul since it released. I was trying to pill Hatch on that because it's like, look, this is just Small World, except it guarantees you access, you don't lose hand advantage, and you get scales. And he just wasn't having it.
Yeah, the problem with the it's weird because I know he's been on Parallel Exceed.
Yes.
The problem with the what's the word I'm trying to think of? With the super heavy stuff is literally just the fact that because the super heavy cards aren't very like the super heavy cards themselves, like they theoretically like make getting into rosin like easier. One, like you still just kind of like you're a lot more susceptible to like to just like cards like impermanent stuff. You randomly become a little more susceptible to stuff like Droll. But then and then you also just have to add like bricks, like a few extra bricks to your deck, and like the appeal of Vanquish Soul is that it's like fairly consistent. And then so by adding the Vanquish Soul cards to by adding the super heavy cards to try to make it to theoretically make it more consistent, you're actually making it less consistent, and you're still and you're in turn also making it softer to like those other cards, because we forget like Imperm and Baylor theoretically aren't really that good into like are only decent into Vanquish Soul, because like if they just have like you try to imperm the Ryzen, but they just have like
to bounce it.
They have like Borger to bounce it, or they have like one of the Koi Play spells also does something, I forget. Like it just makes it where like you basically just like minus yourself. But you can't do that on like a Dempsey. So it's like
but no, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that there is a Vanquish Soul and it did see some representation, especially high level. But I would put that deck above Unchained. I'd put it above Labyrinth right now. I don't think I'd put it above Vanadium, but
I think the Unchained Unchained was just like very much inflated by the fact that like
a lot of the players were like
a group of professional like high level North American players just showed up playing the deck.
There's literally in the top 8 there was one team that was playing 3 Unchained decks. And then there was one team that played 2.
Yes, like Jesse Con's team was on 3 Unchained, Hoban's team was on 2, and then you had like Pac who was playing it and stuff.
Also, I'm seeing like there's 2 Chimera branded, and a lot of people are just realizing how strong the Chimera deck is.
Yeah, I feel like the Chimera deck's like kind of lost a little bit of that steam compared to like week 1 of like the Dune regionals. Now that people actually know how to play against it. But I think the Chimera brand deck's still like pretty strong.
The only problem I'm seeing with it is from a deck building perspective, where it's like a lot of people haven't come to a consensus on how to play the deck, right? Because like there are decks where it's like they're playing 50-50 Chimera stuff and branded. There's some where they're just playing branded fusion just to get the Berfament in the graveyard. There's some where they're playing like it's just branded with a Chimera engine, and we're not really... There's not a lot of communication between the players, and like I don't think there's like a Chimera Discord yet, so there's not a lot of people like actually labbing the deck together and figuring out what's better.
I think I personally I haven't like really started like testing the deck yet. I really do want to like try it out. I think I personally lean more towards just like playing like branded fusion and Albaz, kind of similar to like what the branded Outlook deck did, where it was like you played like where you only played those 2 cards just so you could like make Mirror Jade.
You made Mirror Jade
and get like your Golden Lord into circulation. So you just go like Branded Fusion, set up like Golden Lord with Mirror Jade, and then like set 4 back row, and you just tell your opponent good luck, have fun.
Now the only like better thing you could do is like if you were playing a single copy of like Tragedy or one of them, like one of the darks, then you can make Lupelion, and then Lupelion can pitch like a Hawk Arrow or a Conquistador to graveyard, and then that also gets your engine online.
But I think the problem Brandon has just had like recently, like especially in the last few months, is that like you have to play like so many like one-ofs as like engine requirements.
It's like
it theoretically like raises your ceiling, but also just makes your deck like a lot less like a lot less consistent.
Yeah, like
it
what?
makes it where your
like
deck
7
now your deck
one-ups?
has to resolve like Brand Fusion to like do anything.
Yeah, there's like 7 1-ups if I'm not mistaken. Like it's actually ridiculous. It looks like a GOAT format deck. And then on top of that, because like the deck does lose so hard to Ash Blossom and like
you have to like
other
start
cards.
playing like you have to start playing like more like bad cards like Crossout.
Yeah, people are on Crossout because they're like, I can't lose to Ash. Yeah.
Like you just have to play so many like weird cards that like otherwise it wouldn't be that good. Like just to make your choice of deck like work. I think like if I had to, like if I was to play the deck, like it's one of the decks I'm considering for the format. I think I would just play like kind of like the 3 Brand Fusion, the 2 Albaz, and just like call it a day.
Yeah.
That's me personally.
Anything else that stands out? There's like a couple Labyrinth decks. There's a couple Bestial Dragon Link decks. There's a Runic Furhire Sprite, and there's another one that just says Sprite. I don't know if they're on like the Melfi package or what.
Most like pure Sprites builds are just kind of like playing like the little Melfi package now.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't think Sprite is necessarily bad.
Sprite's very fine. Sprite has this thing where it's like, if I was to like, where you could probably show up to like locals or regional on a Sprite deck and like do fine.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Sprite is that it's just like if you play Sprite into like Kashtira all day, then you're probably gonna be fine because like that matchup's actually like pretty decent. Yeah. The problem is like the format is just so wide open right now, like in a like post Dune, that it's really hard to pinpoint specific things. Like the like I imagine the Unchained matchups just like abysmal because like you make Gigantic and they just like link it off, and then they have and then they have Caesar for the.
Yeah, you could just link into like another copy of Rage or a copy of I know you can. You could just link into a Muckraker. Like it doesn't matter if they've already 2-locked you. It just Yeah,
and then like Caesar would be able to negate like the starter, so you can't even like really like push back. It's like it's really it's hard.
Yeah. See now, okay, Sprite is like the first deck in a long time where I made the mistake of buying the cards because I came up with some really cool combos and not playing the deck first. Because I pioneered a Cyberse Gadget Sprite list.
I remember that,
yeah, which is like, it was a really cool list where a single...
So when Sprite first came out, I actually played, it was Sacred Beast Sprite. I call it Sacred Beast, but it didn't play any like Sacred Beasts, like any of the original
Dark Beckoning Beast, right?
Yeah, so it was the build. It was like I was playing like 3 Beckoning Beasts and like 2 of the Gates because Beast. Yeah, so the theory was basic. Like, mind you, this was like early Pote format, so the format was still being like solved.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, the theory was just that if you like Beckoning Beast by itself was like the Elf Toad combo. But if you open Beast with a Sprite, you can set up a Almirage plus Gin Buster first, which basically and that board faced like every hand trap besides like specifically Imperm.
Yeah. Which that sounds pretty cool, and like
and it just gave you a lot of like you had like a lot of like follow up for the crackback. You still had like the ability to play like all of like the cool like kind of like power spells like Econ and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It got me my first regional top 4.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the Cyber Sprite deck that I built was it was built around just like a singular combo, which it's still a really strong combo. So it's just any level 2 and a Signet Mining gets you to, if I'm remembering correctly, it is a Lingaribo, which protects you from Imperm or Evenly Matched. A Herald of the Arclight, Sprite Double Cross, Melfi of the Forest, Negate. And I believe it also ends on a Sprind. So that was 5 interruptions that lets you play through double Imperm, double Evenly Matched. You had a double Omni with Herald of the Arclight. You had a bounce negate with you had a negate with Melfi of the Forest, and then you had a bounce with Sprind, which like sounds really good, right? But the problem I found with Sprite, just in general, is the monsters are just so dinky. It just didn't match with my playstyles. Like it didn't matter if I set up 5 interruptions and had 3 hand traps in hand still. It just, I couldn't win the game.
I always hear people talk about like, I don't know how to close out the game with Sprite. I never had that problem, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, or what would end up, or even like what would end up happening, like, I would either like find a really weird way to like kill my opponents. Usually it would involve just like making a second gigantic with a link 2, and then like summoning it, making a Nimbamaru to like banish a card, and then just killing them with like a Nimbamaru, Toad, gigantic, and then like another guy. Like that was usually like over 8,000 at that point. Or what would happen is like I would get them down to like 200 or 300 life points, and then I would just make a Jin Buster. Like, because Jin Buster also, like when Jin Buster negates, it also burns. So like they're just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, I think it did come down to the fact that like I just didn't spend enough time on the deck. I just figured out that combo and just did that combo, and I didn't actually care to learn the deck, right? But like other people who did know Sprite, like my buddy Zach, he got like second place at several locals playing the Cyber Sprite deck. And the reason I built the Cybers variant is because I built it after Ronin Tonin got banned, and people were doing the Bujinki swap frog into Toad stuff. And I was just like, this is horrible. I hate this. And then I realized, wait, Cyber Skagit, like one of my favorite cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, is just actually the best Sprite card.
Yeah.
Because it's a one card. It's one card Sprint. Which if it's a one card Sprint, that means it's a one card Gigantic, which means it's a one card fucking anything.
Anything, yeah. Yeah, Gigantic's a very open-ended card. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But I don't know. I wonder, did the Sprite stuff go up at all because it didn't get reprinted? I imagine it went up a little bit, but
I mean, maybe like a little bit, but like Sprite in general has been like, compared to where it was like a few months ago, it's been like pretty low lately. Yeah. Even like the ultis are like pretty cheap now.
Yeah, I know the the blues are like nothing. I think Secret Blue is like 20 and like Ulti Blue is like 25.
Oh, it's even worse than that, my guy.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, like Secret Blues are like 15.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then like Ulti Blues, Ulti Blues are like around 25, 25, 26.
Yeah, I do know like if I wanted to play Sprite, I did get rid of A Gigantic. Yeah, you're right. Secrets are 15, and Gigantics are still $5.
So if you what do we think about because we talked about it a little bit last week, I think, what do you think about like Sprite getting hit on the ban list?
At this point, I don't see it getting hit. Like, the worst like it can happen is like either they might semi-jet or they might just put starter to 1, just as like just to like push people to play new decks or buy the new decks like Age of Overlord or something. But the deck is just not doing anything.
I feel like Sprite has this weird thing where it kind of reminds me of like where Sword Soul was last year. Was like the comparison I've been making, where it's like it's still good enough where it's like, again, you can like take it to a regional and probably get your invite, but it's not. But it's so much worse than like the other decks in the room that like it's not. It's like, again, like it's kind of like what you said, where it's like I could see it getting like a little tap like jet to 1 maybe, but other than that, I don't really think they would hit it. I hope not.
Honestly, like the strongest hit that they could do, I mean, like the absolute like worst hit that I could see genuinely happening is like sprint to 1, and that's like so harsh. And even then,
is that harsh? That doesn't sound like it would matter actually.
I mean, it means like it. Like
I've only ever played with like 1 sprint, so
see the Cyber Sprite combo, you made 2 sprint.
Oh, so you
went through both.
Yeah, you use 1 to make gigantic and then 1 as part of your on board.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I've only ever like played with 1, and that's because like even in like the world, even like in the world where I would like use it as like an interrupt, like I usually never needed 1. Like I've never seen myself needing more than 1.
Yeah. So I don't know. I genuinely don't feel like there's any reason to hit it. Like they took away the unfair like cards, which was Elf, and then they neutered the Toad lines. Like you can still do it with Bujinki, even though it's like super lame.
Yeah, you can also do it with Reaper-Docus, which is really funny.
You can, yeah, if you want to make
Reaper-Docus is at least a cool card. Like Reaper-Docus is at least like only like 10 cents as opposed to like however much Bujinki like. The Bujinki
it was like 15 or like 17 or something at one point. Let me see.
Yeah, it's still like fucking. It's not as bad as it was before, but like it's still like. Okay, you can get it. You can get the 1 for like $5 now.
Yeah, it's not as bad.
I remember at its like peak, it was like almost $30 for no reason. It's like why? Like.
Yeah, Yeah, so I guess like I don't know. I think the decks that are going to get hit is like I think Kashtira, like they're finally just gonna ban a Rise Heart. I think they might hit Pearly as well. I don't think they're hitting Unchained at all. I don't think they're hitting Labyrinth. They might hit like the Virus cards, but that's about it.
I can see I feel like Virus to 0 and then like one of the Welcome Labyrinths like 1 would be fair.
Yeah, that's like fair.
Yeah.
And then what else? Like I want Branded to die. I'm sorry. I'm tired of Branded just being around.
I don't think it's weird because I feel like they'll try and do a hit that'll like. I can see them making a hit to like the pure Branded deck just to like deter people towards the Chimera decks. Like I could see a world where it's like they'll keep Fusion at like they'll put Fusion to 2, but then like they'll do something like Aliber or Opening to 1, something weird like that.
Yeah, I think
just because like those are the types of hits that like Konami would do just to, like keep selling a set, you know?
Yeah.
I think the Runic cards need to get some type of hit, probably.
Yeah, let's just either ban Hugin or ban Fountain. Either one is fine.
I mean, I don't want to like kill the deck. Like the deck just becomes unplayable at that point.
I mean, that's fine though.
Like I was just thinking like tip to 1. Like.
Nah, I mean, you can. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Anyone who's playing Runic is just like, it's just instant fusion at this point. You're just playing an instant fusion variant that draws you a bunch of cards.
So no, what they need to do is they need to take the Ishizu approach, where they just put all the quick play spells to 1.
That'd be very fun. Also, okay, unironically, I do think if you put like one of each of the Ishizus back to 2, so like then you have a total of 3 Millers and 3 Shufflers. That might be okay. That might be something they can do. Also, Gamma back to 3. Just give me back Gamma. My boy did nothing wrong.
Gamma was such a cool card. I don't know why they limited that card.
So we obviously will never know, but I think the reason they limited it was to decrease the power of Super Heavy.
But then they also just banned Scarecrow. And
yeah, so it was super unnecessary. And now Droll Shifter is everywhere, and there's no counterplay to it. So this is like the last story we'll tell before we wrap it up. Is so I went to locals yesterday, obviously. I ran up with Fluffle Unchained, which is actually a super cool deck.
Please, I've been hearing about the deck. Please explain that deck to me.
All right,
like, what is the synergy? Help me out here.
All right, so yeah, if we want to talk about it. All right, so the entire synergy is if you know anything about the Fluffle deck, right? For a long time, it was playing copies of Eldritch the Golden Lord because it gave you spot removal from the hand, and it also gave you a way to pop your own toy vendors from the graveyard. And it gave you link material for stuff like Cross Sheep or something like Psyframe Lambda back when we had Gamma, right? And that gave you a way to play through Toad if you didn't have the Penguin and a Dolphin and a Bahamut line. But with the new Unchained, the Red Dog, right? What that does is that lets you pop toy vendors, set toy vendors specifically from hand, and you can also do really cool stuff like normal summon and Edgemp chains, pop your own Edgemp chains, add Patchwork, and then Patchwork gets you Poly and an Edgemp chains. You can then fuse into a Cruel Whale, and then you can link into Yama. And the really cool thing about the new Red Dog, right, is the way it's worded. It locks you into Fiends, but only while it's face up on field. So after you link it off, you're no longer locked into Fiends. So what you can do is you can link into the Soul of Yama, add a Sharava, add a second Red Dog for your turn, and set an escape so you have an interrupt. And then you can, if you get another monster on field, which you can frequently do with something like an Edgemp Sabers or something, you can then just make a Soul of Rage, so you have a way to link into a Unicorn, or you can link into like an access code if you really wanted to on your opponent's turn. And basically what it gives you, it just lets you get more material while popping toy vendors from hand, because that's like the big thing is Golden Lord was great because you could send a toy vendor from hand, you could send an Edgemp Chains from hand, but you had to get it in graveyard to pop a toy vendor on field. Because you had so many more ways to get a toy vendor on field than you did in hand. Because like you could go, you had a bear to set the toy vendor, and then you could dog to search the bear. So basically it gives you more ways to pop toy vendor, it gives you link material. It does the exact same thing as Golden Lord, except just slightly better.
Well, yeah. To be fair, everything's better than Eldritch, so.
Yeah. Also with Bystials running around, that's it. The Golden Lord gets Bystial all the time. Yeah. Anyway, so I ran up to locals this weekend with Fluffle Unchained, which I've been following the Necrofusion Discord like off and on because I played Fluffle for a long time. But after I like picked up the Unchained deck, I was like, our tournament organizer at our locals, he's always been like, Unchained is the best way to play Fluffle. Like play with Unchained cards, even before the new support. And after I saw, I was like, maybe he's right. And turns out he was. However, my second round, I got paired against the one Kashtira player. And he shifted me in his draw phase and made his full board. I drew for turn, didn't have a play, so I just scooped it up and sided in. Went first, he shifted me during my draw phase, and I just scooped it up and just said, bye. And he like tried to shake my hand. Was like, no, that wasn't a good game. There was no game. I just lost.
Like you shifted me 2 games in a row.
I did not play a card. Yeah, I did not play a card. Therefore, I did not play a game. Therefore, it was not a good game. And that's why Gamma should come back to 1. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, guys.
Should come back to 1?
should come off from 1. Anyways, we're sauced. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Luca, do you have any shout-outs? Do you have any links, any socials you wanna plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/mihoyaboy. Sometimes I tweet stuff. I'm also gonna try to start streaming like this month. I want to stream the KC Cup coming up for Duel Links, and then I plan on doing a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Inclement Emerald, so keep an eye out for that. It's twitch.tv/mihoyaboy. I have to change my name to that.
Let's go.
And then, of course, shout out to Bumboy Progression. Smile.
Let's go, Bumboy. Yeah, if you want to, it'll be linked in the description. So, the 20 people who watch the podcast will go check it out, I'm sure.
Shout out to Bumboy, real quick. Shout out to Bumboy Progression, where I got to Stein OTK. Smile.
Fuck off.
That was really fun. I'm sorry. I forgot that was good. I said that and then immediately was like, wait, I did that to Colin, didn't I?
Alright, thanks for watching, everybody.